All right. Thank you for being with us today. Monica did an amazing job to keep us away this morning. Let's give you a break so I can speak, and she can prepare her next demo. We did some polls. How many of you really tried to use Copilot Studio before? Just show me your hands. OK, so a little bit, not all of you. And by the way, if you never heard about Copilot Studio, it's awesome. It didn't really exist. Like, it's this brand on naming 6 months ago. And if you look what it can do now versus 6 months ago, it's like night and day. So we'll look on it today. If you ask Satya Nadella or watch Microsoft build executive technical keynotes about Copilots, Aaron will tell you Copilot Studio is a tool for a job to bring your data from different sources and your ERP product like BC to Copilot experiences. So it's a part of a Power Platform family of products, but for Microsoft, it has a kind of value beyond that. The way how Microsoft believe or position Copilot Studio, it's one place when you can enrich your data to bring your data to conversational experiences across all Copilot work we do in Microsoft, if it's in the office, if it's business applications, and so on and so forth. So again, it kind of goes beyond Business Central to some extent. And we'll try to show you today how we can be part of this journey with the tools and products we have. It's interesting that we don't really talk about licenses on a developer tracks, but you all take a selfie or screenshot of this. So yes, Copilot Studio is a product. They have a special, how should we say, pricing schema, because there's a lot of AI consumption power behind the scene. And the good news, it's not that really expensive. If you really, really, really look deeper, you pay for amount of consumptions your bot will bring you once you build them. So it's more like you can build tools as a developer, as a creator, but once it's using live, then there is some charges to pay. And actually, it's really, really easy to get started. Microsoft built like a number of very easy entry websites. You can go ahead and experience things. And that's exactly what we're going to show you right now. So we'll start with a brief introduction, how to use Copilot Studio, and maybe like a primitive example, what can be built in a couple of clicks. And with this, we'll go back to Monica.
Thank you, Ievgenii. As Ievgenii said, Copilot Studio can be used to create a chat assistance. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to get started. Of course, you can go ahead and buy the trial license just to get started. But even before trial license, you can just try a demo. And I'll show you how it looks like. So if you search Copilot Studio, you will end up in this experience. And you can click Try a Demo, and then you'll end up here. Here, what it is asking you is a website where the Copilot can train itself to give answers in the chat experience. Let me just try learn.microsoft.com. And let's see, start chat. It asks me to agree the terms, and I agree. And here, we already have a chat bot that is trained on this website, or not trained, but it's going to find info on this website and help me with this. So, OK, let's see. What can it say? How can I post an invoice in Business Central?
Really?
Learn.microsoft.com is basically the documentation website. And it has documents for documentation for entire Microsoft products. So let's see if this works. Ooh, came with an answer. Let's see. It says, choose the icon. It meant the search icon. Click sales invoice, enter customer's name, fill in the details, fill in the lines. So far, so good, right? How simple is it? Like, I literally added a line, and it's done. Of course, that's not the real scenario. You need to do a lot to create bots, and we'll show you later why this is needed. But I want to show you an example that Ievgenii usually really likes, which is let's ask how to revert a credit memo. This was also one of the poll questions. Let's see. And some of you replied, no, it cannot be possible. But some of you said, I know different ways to do it in Business Central. First of all, it realized I'm still talking about Business Central. That's good. But then it says, go to posted sales invoice, and then select the posted sales credit memo, and then choose the cancel action. There's no such thing. It's hallucinating. It's creating generative text based on the input it thinks it can help best with. And that's why you need to do more than just providing website. You need to make sure that you give the right instructions, the right prompts to limit and get the best experience for the user. That was the demo, but it was easy to try it out, right? So, yeah.
So maybe just to clarify, so Monica just showed you how you can get started, build your bot, but she also showed you a case where bot is hallucinating, meaning to give you like a false data. We don't want you to say the tool doesn't work. We just want to highlight that the tools and technology still have their gaps, and we are very open about that, and it's very easy to see it with small demos like that. But if you kind of put your data from your documentation, from your products, you probably get a pretty significant results. And Microsoft don't ship actually any tools which doesn't have enough level of accuracy. If we just show you a case that doesn't work, but we're kind of saying that in 90% plus of every kind of AI work Microsoft does, the feature will work exactly as it intended to be, which is kind of a pretty significant number. Okay.
Okay. Exactly what Ievgenii said. It is a very powerful product. And why so? Because, first of all, you can not only build your own custom Copilot to solve so many scenarios, all the ideas that you have always had, but you can also extend the first-party Copilots that come default with Copilot Studio. And these Copilots can be Office Copilots, Microsoft 365 Copilots. These could be dynamic Copilots. We could other Microsoft Copilots you can just build on top of them. Copilot Studio is also very powerful because it provides integration options with all latest Azure AI technologies, including Broad Framework, Bot Services, Azure AI Studio, AI Builder, that you saw some of them in Power Automate, and Power Platform connectors. So it's very, very, very powerful. OK, but now we are going to talk about how you can go ahead and build your own Copilot. And these are pretty much the steps that we have summarized. So you start with the intuitive web interface that Copilot Studio has, where you provide knowledge sources, like I did for learn.microsoft.com, but you also provide different other knowledge sources, and you just, the web interface is so intuitive enough that you can get started easily. But not only that, you also have the generative AI capabilities, as shown in the previous slide. So you can use Copilot's generative answers and customs by providing them the data. So it generates answers based on the data you provided. You can create specific topics. Topics are basically a concept in Copilot Studio where you decide on certain entities, and you define the steps in a topic, and then the combination of topics will actually how your Copilot Studio will act on. Not only that, you can bring data to Copilot Studio using the actions and plugins that you also saw in the connector for Power Automate. We can also use the same connectors in Copilot Studio, including the Business Central one. Finally, when you have decided the topics, when you have used the generative AI capabilities, when you have used the web interface and actions and plugins, you can just go ahead and publish this Copilot. And the publish is supported on multiple channels, including Teams, web, and so on. But once you've built it and published it, your users have started using the bot. It could be a bot for handling the services, or it could be a bot for improving the employee process. You can also track who is using what in terms of monitoring and improving your product. And last but not the least, you can use conversational experiences with Azure AI services together with Copilot. So this is pretty much the steps. But let's see the demo. Ievgenii is going to show an experience with time registration Copilot Studio.
All right, I'm going to show you a scenario from a user perspective. I can show you what you can build, how it works, and then we'll see what's happening behind the scene. So I'm a normal user in your organization, people who really do a real work, and I work in the tools and products I love, like Microsoft Office. For example, how many of you use Loop or seen that product which Microsoft has as a part of Office Suite? So basically, I have like a OneNote. I can take my, notes, and actually that's what I do. So I'm working on a project, and every week, when I'm done with the work, I need to report my hours. So this week, last week it was awesome. I get some work done on my decks, I build some content, I get a presentation, and now I need to report the time spent on those activities, and I never do it. It's boring, it's long, we never postpone it until last minute, and so on and so forth. So let's see, and just to summarize what has happened, so last week I spent some hours on project A, on project B, on Monday, next day, and then on Wednesday I was off and remaining of the week. So this kind of summarize in a couple of words what has really happened. Now, I've been told so here's my data. So I've been told from my colleagues that instead of using some old apps, we have a better way to report the time. And when I'm working in Teams, where I spend majority of my time, we have a new bot created for that. So I can go ahead and find this bot, say, hey. So kind of bot is usually have a conversational experience and can ask me how I'm doing. I'm doing amazing. And how can I help? How can I help is a great question, because it's promote an action. In my case, when I say I want to register time, I guess, or project hours, say, sure, I can help you with that. So now, instead of maybe fill out some forms or Excel files, which I could, by the way, or go to BC and fill out journal lines, which I could, I can just go ahead, maybe describe in a natural language what I've been doing, and see if that will be sufficient enough. So in this case, in natural language, I just say, hey, that's what has been done, and then what's happening back, we basically parse this information, process it, maybe contact to other system, verify, present data back, maybe I can reconfirm, and this case saying, hey, so you spent your time on Monday, Tuesday doing this and that, categorized in hours by different activities. And if I'm fine with that, which by the way I am, I just say confirm, and I will go ahead and store this data in Business Central. My job is done, and I can continue with doing wherever I want to. So in that scenario, as a user, I absolutely care less if there is a BC behind the scene, if there is a new process introduced. I can go ahead in a product I love without switching context, get things done, and move on with my day, wherever those activities are. So that's like a scenario, bringing bots where people are working. And in this case, I use Teams, but I could use different channels for doing that. Maybe I have just to show you quickly, maybe I have an internal web portal. So I'm not in Teams, but I can go ahead and do the same, in a different interface, so to speak. But behind the scene is the same bot or the same Copilot who powers those interactions. All right, so let's go ahead and see how we build that, and actually how easy is to build experiences like that. we'll start with the Copilot Studio. So if you go to Copilot Studio, I'll just press Home for now. You see we have a couple of Copilots created. So this one we created for this demo. And you should basically go ahead, press a new button. And that bot has a number of topics. I really want to walk you through a couple of basics so you can see what's happening behind the scene. So we have a topics. And if I can use Monica's laptop. Never mind. So that'll make sense. As a part of definition of bot, you can define a logical flow, what should happen. Exactly the same how will you create your automation. So in this case, we have a flow which will start reacting if the user will ask something about register time or reporting hours. So we'll say, if users ask for reporting hours, and then you can define like a flow, step by step, what should happen. In this case, bot will follow up saying, hey, yes, I can help. Please describe what do you need to report. User will reply back. And at some point, we'll come to this magical moment where we have something called an action. So here's the place, and maybe I can zoom it for a gentleman on the first row to take a better view. But there is the place so you can say what should happen with the data which the user just provided. And in this case, for now, it will basically call a Power Automate flow with the input. And that's where the magic will happen for this demo. So bot will take your input and delegate it to Power Automate. And now we are in a very familiar territory where we can enrich that interaction with a GTP action and do whatever we really want. So here's a flow which bot just called. Actually, it's super basic. It's basically saying it's a new trigger or action that flow will call from Copilot, and then we have an action where we'll take an input from the user, and we decide what to do with that. So in this case, let me show you what we have. We built a prompt, of course, and that prompt have a structure like a very basic instructions. You're a helper, which try to register a time. The employee will report an hour, try to describe it. Please process this input in a given structure and summarize it, and so on and so forth. And you can always test those prompts. So here is a test data I put in, and you can go ahead and test how would your prompt work. In this case, you're basically saying, given this instruction and this input, show me the result. And this is how bot will respond, because we said, please return back a table. Obviously, in a normal real world, you'll say in JSON, if you want to build more advanced integrations, maybe it'll be even your default choice for basic instructions like that. If we have a capacity. We do?
We do.
We do? Yeah, so and you can also say maybe that in this case, we said each workday consists of 8 hours, and you can say maybe when I say report, what can you say? We can do whatever you want, actually. So basically, you have a playground where you define your prompts, you explain your instructions, which work against user input, and then basically you can push this data to the next steps.
Can I change the model or more settings on how the GPT should act?
Yeah, the reason why we had to wait a bit, couple of seconds, because for this demo we use GTP4, and GTP4 likes like an extra second or two to be called, at least in our environments. But if you default to 3.5, it's just significantly faster. It's just that one is not better, but different for this demo. That's really, yes, you can go ahead and do that. And this is, by the way, new. We very recently exposed for you awareness about models, which you can use to write your prompts. Back to your pricing question, because based on the model, it'll cost you less or more, depends which one you use. All right, so far so good. So back to Copilot Studio. What you just seen that there was an initial step from the user. We take an input. We reach out to Azure OpenAI. We parse the natural language, create some structured response. And from here, you can go ahead and build next what should happen. In this case, we give you some adaptive card to the user. Does he or she want to confirm an action? And then you can go ahead and build more action. And we haven't added you, but you can go ahead and add integration to Business Central, bring our connector, and just sends this data back to Business Central with your custom APIs and reports those hours. Like really, really straightforward way to get from a natural interface, capture data, understand, and store back to the Business Central.
Yes.
Does it work? Yeah. One more time. So we see this as a tool which allows you to bring bots, enrich with data. It takes them from creation to deployment to different places. If you, by some chance, let's see if our animation works. Actually, not really. 6 months ago or so, we announced a public preview for Power Pages integration with Business Central. So you can go ahead and build external portals to expose your data from BC. And if you choose to use this technology, you can also bring bots to your websites. It just works out of the box. If you continue to invest in Power Apps integration, you can also bring the same bot to those apps, which just kind of extra clicks. So it doesn't really take you much. Maybe we should show it again. I forgot to mention that. But if you go to Copilot Studio, in a place when you create your bot, you can also define something called channels, meaning what are the places where you want to go ahead and publish that bot. So in this case, the bot we built for this demo, we show you how it works in Teams. But again, you can bring it to multiple channels, and you can easily imagine the integration, the same experiences if you're in Telegram, if you're in your custom websites, and so on and so forth. And this list of channels or places where you can bring your bots will grow next 6-12 months within work we do as a Microsoft, and so on and so forth. So again, you build bot, and you can distribute to as many places as you would want. All right. Monica will take over and tell us about more ways to bring data to Copilot Studio from Business Central.
Thank you, Ievgenii. As you already mentioned and showed one way, which is using Power Automate flows with Business Central connector. You saw the flow that brings the data to Copilot Studio. That's not the only one. He also mentioned plugins, which is basically actions from our connector. It's the same connector that we have for Power Automate. And last, but not the least, definitely, you can bring data from Dataverse to Copilot Studio. This is in preview, and it right now supports native data, native tables in the Dataverse environment, and in future it will also support virtual tables, hopefully. Okay, let's see the demo for bringing Dataverse data as knowledge source for chat. Thank you. Okay. Here I have a very, very simple Copilot where I have created a name and a description, but then I went ahead and added knowledge from Dataverse. This is the new thing that's in preview. And I said, I look for all the tables, and then I could search for, let's say, contacts. Found the table. And then we click next. Then it shows the preview of the data that is already there. And then if I click next, it actually takes that data in the source. And I have already done this. So you could see that there is the contact knowledge. And I haven't created any topics like Ievgenii did. All I did is to add Dataverse as the knowledge source. That's actually not true. I did one more thing. I went to the settings, and I said, enable the response for generative AI. So what does that mean? That means now I'm asking the Copilot to use this data source knowledge and create responses for me. You kind of saw something similar in the first demo, where it used the data source from the learn.microsoft.com, but now it's data from Dataverse. But where does Business Central come into picture? It does, because we went to, sorry, I can just go ahead to Business Central. Because we went to Business Central and enabled the Dataverse sync, which is a feature that enables to sync certain data from Business Central to Dataverse. And let's see if I have done that. Yes, so we have a setup guide that is run. And I went ahead and enabled this Dataverse sync. And I chose my environment, so you can choose this one. And provide the information and sign in and so on. Since this is already set up, it should be fine. The data has been synced. And let's see how it works in real chat experience. OK. Actually, I would like to go to Teams. Let's do that. And here I have my new Copilot called BC Dataverse Copilot. And let's see how it looks like. So if I say hi, every Copilot comes with some built-in topics. Since I haven't created any topics, it still can realize what to say on greetings and how to end the conversation and things like that. These topics are called system topics that comes by default with Copilot. You can choose not to use them, or you can choose to edit them as you like. All I have done in my Copilot is added a Dataverse knowledge. So let's see. OK, my Copilot knows about context. Let's ask something about context. So how many contexts are there in, let's say, US? Now it's going to search through its knowledge source and try to find out how many contexts are there. It's a bit slow. While it does that, I would like to show you how many contexts we actually have. OK, it came back and said 10 contexts in the US. And it also said that it got this information from my Dataverse environment. But let's verify if we have really 10 contacts. And I have all the contacts here. We have 23 in total, and there are 10 from US. So it came with the data. This is very powerful, because with this, now you can actually do data Q&A in one way. So you can ask questions about your data. That was the demo. Over to you, Ievgenii.
No, you want to comment on that?
Oh, I want to comment on that. That's true. That's true. So how did it do it? I just want to say that behind the scenes, it used generative answers based on the knowledge. And that's possible because there is this feature which allows Copilot Studio to use the generative AI capability. Yes, that's also something I want to talk about, which is when you're going to develop Copilots using Copilot Studio, there are going to be multiple things that you will try. And I want to recommend some best practices from our learning experiences. First and foremost, Topics. Topics are the key of the Copilot Studio. That's where you decide how the Copilot should act depending on users' input or whatever happened last. And I would suggest to first make sure that your topics are organized clearly in a logical way. So there must be one topic for greetings, one for ending the flow, one for connecting to the live agent, and so on. One for actually, in this case, registering time or whatever the core process you wanted them to do. But also, scale or organize your topics in terms of scaling, because they're going to grow. You want your Copilot to do more. So you want to logically organize your topics with scaling in mind. Yes. Then we have entities and slot filling. You need to identify the entities that your Copilot needs to extract from user input. So your Copilot should be able to fetch all the information that it needs from the user before doing the next step. And that is pretty much it. This technique is also called slot filling, where it's basically an AI technique where you fill the slots to get all the user input before you do your next step as a Copilot. Trigger phrases. Every topic mostly starts with a trigger, and it has some trigger phrases which says, when hello is said, what should you do? Or when register time is said, what should you do? You need to make sure that you create concise and intuitive trigger phrases, because same thing can be said in multiple ways. So add as many trigger phrases as you can, but also test with different users with different language skills. Authentication. Something that we didn't show yet is authentication mechanism. And I want to make sure that your Copilot has the right authentication mechanisms. You could use the default authentications for Teams and Office, but you could also configure your own AAD app and authenticate against it for more channels and more scenarios. And last but not the least, always measure the usage of your Copilot and provide feedback loops. When a Copilot is generating a result, make sure it also asks for feedback from the user. Do you like the result? Can it be improved? I'll stay on this slide for a minute because it's important, and I see a lot of people are taking pictures. Those are the best practices. Ievgenii, give us the key takeaways.
So if you're still wondering why we kind of spend your time talking about these topics today, it's like a BC TechDays conference, the answer is we start seeing requests from our customers, some BC customers, hey, we pay attention to AI, to Copilot development. We are with Microsoft. We have Microsoft Copilot with Bing Office. How can BC data be part of that story? And if you have a question like that, here's the answer. Copilot tool is the best tool Microsoft has so far in order to enrich the Copilot experience with the data from Business Central. It's a tool which has a significant investments over last 6 months, 12 months, and probably next future ahead. From development point of view, as long as you expose your data from a custom APIs and extension, you're good to go. And then it's really, really easy to integrate to some of those surfaces and deploy your bots across different channels. So our call to action is go ahead, try it out. It's free to start. It's actually every demo we show you today you should be able to go ahead and do in half an hour yourself. Like it's absolutely no magic. It's more like it's really easy to get started. And team put some love and craft in that studio to make it intuitive and easy to get started, by the way. As always, we have places to go if you don't know how to reach out to us. And with that, we have like 7 minutes for Q&A for a first session, for a second session. So let's have the discussion now.
Remember the T-shirts. Yes.
Monica, we need to.
Oh.
You can throw on a second.
I'll try. Here you go. Oh, it worked.
Well, hi. I want to ask you if it's possible to use Copilot with virtual tables?
No, not yet.
Not so far. Then for the custom data,
Yes.
We need to use some other way to pass the information from the...
Yes, so you have the plugins. Let me...
Can you rephrase the question maybe first?
Yes, I would like to rephrase the question, which is, he's asking whether it's possible to use virtual tables of Dataverse with Copilot. And the answer is not yet. Then he's saying, how do I bring my custom data to Copilot Studio? And I'm going to quickly show you that one way. So let me just go to an existing, okay, where am I? Let's say Copilot Studio Home. Bot, and I want to show you, it's the same experience that we have in Power Automate. You can also have in Copilot Studio using actions and plugins. So I'll just go ahead and use the Time Chatter Copilot to just show quickly. So I'll go to this topic. And let me just show you. Let's say I want to bring data from Business Central using a add-in. Then I can say call an action. And here I have connectors, same that you have seen in Power Automate. And you can have Business Central here. And then through custom APIs, same as in Power Automate, you can bring the data. So it works same. It wants the connection and then specifies which APIs. You expose your custom data through APIs. Those APIs will be available here, and so on.
And for virtual tables, it's not available right now because it was created like 2 months ago, but they will enable capability shortly.
Okay, another question.
Another question? Oh, sorry, another question. Sorry, let's hold on. We can take this after. Yes.
Yes, so you showed that you can train on a website Copilot, right?
Yes.
On what language should that website be? Is it multi-language?
Another good question. Oh, let me remember to give T-shirts away. So one for you. Top 3 gets it, or how many we have? Would you help? Thank you. It's a very good question. By default, it supports English, as you saw, but there's a way to do multiple languages in Copilot Studio. Are we sharing the right screen? Yes. Let me show you quickly. So if you go to the Copilot and go to settings, there is this languages here, and you can add more languages. Wait for it, that's not it. But then you also get to say the resource file that you want to add for your translations for the strings that you have in Copilot. You can also add this in this. So the answer for the question is yes, it can support multiple languages.
Does this mean that if you train on English, the users can also ask questions in a different language than that you trained on?
That is a good question. I haven't tried it, but I don't think so it will work on. You have to train it on all the languages that you want your users to be supported. Right, Ievgenii?
Kind of.
Kind of?
So a quick comment about languages and OpenAI integrations, if you're just curious. If you go to OpenAI website, not Azure, but OpenAI website, they will say the only supported language is English, period. If you would look what Microsoft did 12 months ago, all our integration are built in English and maybe like select a set of languages, French, Spanish. But right now, we enable integrations almost across all languages, across all our portfolio. Like even BC features since 24.2, this update, all of our immersive experiences, they're available in all languages. So gradually, language barrier get expanded more and more and more because technology works better, or maybe there is more trust, so to speak. So you can see, I hope you don't need to answer the question like in 6 months from now. It will just kind of works out of the box.
There was one more hand I saw somewhere. Oh, this there. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm just wondering about the limitation using, let's say, the sync from business.
You might want to, hold the mic.
Yeah? This way, I think.
It works, yes,
right?
okay. So I can.
Now, I'm wondering about the limitation when using the sync between Business Central and the Power Apps. I would like to have your advice on what would be the best. Is it virtual entities or Dataverse? And we need to take into consideration when syncing the data back to Business Central, we would like to use events, like posting the journals and so forth. So I'm wondering what's your advice, using the virtual tables for the Power Apps or using the Dataverse?
Should I take this?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay.
Maybe you want to rephrase the question.
Yes,
How we synchronize.
it's a very good question again. The question is, what should be the practice to bring data to Dataverse, whether it should be through virtual tables, whether we should use the data sync, the feature that I showed, or whether it could be through events back and forth and bringing back data to BC. The answer is it depends. And it depends on the scenarios. Data sync is a powerful but a very limited scenario or feature, in the sense that out of the box, it only supports syncs for a very limited number of entities in Business Central, both ways. Virtual tables, on the other hand, exposes more entities out of the box, so it's easier to do basically sync on that. So I personally would start with virtual tables if you don't have anything already in Dataverse. But there are also multiple other technologies. It could be through APIs, and then use combination of Power Platform tools to bring data to Dataverse. And that could work for example, easily for custom entities or entities that are not out of the box in virtual tables and things like that. So it really depends on setup, but I would, if you haven't done anything, start with virtual tables.
Yeah, it's a super hard question, to be honest. And you can say, the Microsoft, how hard can it be for you guys to make sure when I have my sales and BC, it just works? And how hard can it be? And apparently, it's really, 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 really hard. Really hard. So it's every release we try to improve integration all fronts. You have more out-of-box entity to sync with different products. Every release we try to build better integration, but it really depends. Like we give you 3-4 different ways, and sometimes it's up to you to choose what to use, like in a toolbox. Unfortunately, yeah, we should probably do a much better job, but for now, this is how it is.
Okay, we have 19 seconds. Maybe we can take your question if you still have one. Wait, I'm on my way.
How hard can it be?
I have another question about the
Yes.
permissions with the Copilot Studio. When you are asking to Copilot Studio, you are connected with the Dataverse data or Business Central data. What about the permissions? If you don't have permission for see the information, for see this table or to use this table in Dataverse, what happened?
It would not return you data.
Yeah.
Yeah, and make sure your bots are using authentication. So in this scenario, we were not using the authentication. We never logged in as some user, but you have to set up your bots with authentication with the right user, and then using that user's token, it determines what kind of permissions, and then it works same as like you logged in Dataverse.
Yeah,
So it will return you.
If you put the bot in a website, it's open for all the people.
Sorry?
If you put the Copilot in the bot in one website outside of the company,
Yeah.
and then you are using the Copilot for open for all the people. It's not you don't have a specific permission for something.
Yeah, and then you choose to do that to set up your bot like that.
Okay.
You shouldn't.
Monica?
Cool. Okay, time's up. Thank you so much for
Thank you for that.
for the session. Thanks so much.